it's going to strike anger in Donald Trump. I mean, his hubris factor is so high now. He just, he survived an assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, 34 felony, counts. He feels he's on the other side of it, and now, boom, he's getting hit with this, and it'll start another media frenzy, and people will start, talking, about his sexual exploits, which angers Donald Trump because it hurts Melania. And Melania's on a roll now. Her book's #1, but now she'll be in this new line of fire.
We're back with the big deal. I'm Errol Louis. Donald Trump's second term in the White House is already shaping up to be historic. On January 20th, not only will Trump become the oldest American to assume the presidency, but he'll be the first president who has been impeached and convicted. And that's not all. Trump will also become the first president in more than 100 years to serve non-consecutive terms. Joining me now with a historical perspective about all of this is Douglas Brinkley, a presidential historian and a professor of history at Rice University in Texas, and a pretty big deal all by yourself. Thanks for coming by.
Oh, what a joy to be with you.
The thing about exceptions is that they prove the rule. Why is this only the second time a president is serving non-consecutive terms? Why don't defeated presidents make a comeback?
Because they're considered losers. They were in the White House and the public had a chance to keep them in longer and said, go, we don't want you. And so it's a little hard to rehabilitate after that. Now, with that said, people like John Quincy Adams was president, and then he was in Congress for 16 years fighting for abolition of slavery. Or you get somebody like Millard Fillmore on the opposite end. He was president, got out and ran for president on a third party, know-nothing party, an anti-immigrant, anti-Catholic, anti-everything, nativist party. Theodore Roosevelt would run after his presidency as a bull moose third party. But for the party itself, the big D or the big R, to go back to that person who they booted out, it just doesn't happen.
Now, the only other time this has happened, former President Grover Cleveland, who happens to be a Democrat, he makes a comeback, but it wasn't an especially successful term, and the president's party was basically kicked out of the White House for about 16 years after that.
Yeah, well, the thing about what's an interesting factoid really about Grover Cleveland is from the Civil War, Lincoln's the Republican Party, right? All the way to 1932 with FDR, it's all Republican presidents except Grover Cleveland, and then Woodrow Wilson won in 1912 because Theodore Roosevelt broke the Republican Party in two. So it was that dominant, the Republicans. So for Grover Cleveland, he was like, and then William Jennings Bryan, who got nominated a lot, they were like these two that could kind of hang in there in the national estimation. But Grover Cleveland was mediocre, below average, really, president.
We've got some history in the making. Donald Trump set to be sworn in just a few weeks, but we also just learned that he's going to be sentenced on criminal charges here in New York next week. The judge has signaled, I read through this decision, the judge has signaled that there won't be any jail time, but sentence will be imposed. So much as I hate to sort of ask you to predict what historical meaning this will have, how does that strike you?
I think what's going to happen is it's going to strike anger in Donald Trump. I mean, his hubris factor is so high now. He just, he survived an assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, 34 felony, counts. He feels he's on the other side of it, and now, boom, he's getting hit with this, and it'll start another media frenzy, and people will start, talking, about his sexual exploits, which angers Donald Trump because it hurts Melania. And Melania's on a roll now. Her book's #1, but now she'll be in this new line of fire. So it's only going to infuriate incoming President Trump in the same way that by Biden just giving the presidential medal of an honor to Liz Cheney is kicked Trump to say, now I'm not just going to have an inaugural, I'm going to do a rally before the inaugural to prove that January 6th was a good thing or it was my supporters. So every time you try to take a whack at him, he comes back and and overreacts.
Okay, we'll see how that works out. Let's talk about President Biden and his legacy. There was a 2024 survey of presidential experts, including you, that ranked Biden as the 14th best president, which is pretty good out of 46. Trump, meanwhile, is dead last on the list. What defines a great presidency?
Today when people look at them, you divide them into categories. Yes, basically, leadership, electability, ones that you would think, but you also how did you deal with women's issues? What was your record on indigenous people? What was your record on race? What was it on human rights as a wartime president or commander in chief? And so when you start categorizing it up, it does hurt presidents from the past some. Like Andrew Jackson used to be quite high, but the more scholarship on the Trail of Tears and Indian removal policies, you see Jackson sliding downward. And the slave presidents who own slavery, nobody's going to ever knock George Washington off a pedestal, or James Madison for that matter, because they're founders, or Jefferson. But they get dented, and it allows some people to rise. I mean, Dwight Eisenhower has risen in recent years because he was a two-termer, could have won a third term. He was a Republican, fiscal conservative, but Democrats liked a lot of what he did, getting out of Korea, creating NASA, sending federal troops to Little Rock. And so you see Eisenhower on the rise while Jackson's down. Trump now, all bets are off. He's in this second Grover Cleveland term, he's going to, I think he's made it clear we're living, it seems like, in the age of Trump. He's not an asterisk president, somebody who got in. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, but he won the Electoral College barely. And then January 6th happened. Goodbye, Donald Trump. Now we're realizing that the MAGA movement is one of the most serious political zeitgeist in American history.
Well, it is interesting when we look at, there's exit poll data from November showing that Democrats have lost ground among traditional Democratic constituencies, notably working class families. There seems to be a resorting or a reshuffling of who's with which party at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about when Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights, Voting Rights Acts, 64 and 65, and said, there goes the South. Well, he was largely right, except Jimmy Carter won Southern states in 1976 on faith, evangelical, born again, the accent, you'd recognize it in Southern states. There was some Northern people mocking Southerners, and so Carter was able to pull it off. But really, once you write the South off, and turn it red, and it used to be all blue. I mean, FDR was the South. That was his base, and even FDR won Idaho 4 times. He won Utah 4 times. Those are as red as ruby red states as you can get today. So things have gone topsy-turvy. Bottom line is Democrats have to show that they represent working people and the working people's concerns, and sometimes they're getting the rap of being too coastal and not listening to the heartland. Hence why Democrats are looking to have their leader from Wisconsin run the new DNC. Democrats have no future if they can't get back and win in places like Michigan and Wisconsin.
Okay, we'll watch those. Thank you so much for the insight. Great talking with you. Thanks
nice
for coming
talking
by.
to you.
Thank you for watching our YouTube channel. Let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth political coverage, and click the subscribe button right here. You can also download our app or watch us on TV to learn more about the candidates, where they stand on the issues, and more. We'll see you then.